Hello and welcome Battleforge community. Today I am back with another PvP video, and this is going to be a review from the recent rookie tournament that took place, I think 1 month ago or something like that. And I got some of the replays, so I can just do some reviews and talk about what these players were doing well, or at what areas they could improve. And I think I got a very interesting replay between Metagross and JNP Outlaw that I wanted to show. It's a pretty quick one, but also very interesting to watch, because it the strategic decision making really had a large impact on the outcome of that match. So we can see one power well on both ends here. That is a standard opening when playing, because at the start void level is very high. The void power, that's what I meant. You get a lot of void power, so taking a first power well usually is good, because you have a lot of resources available to defend it if the enemy tries to rush. That usually ends up being successful at higher stages of the game, but when you're more of a newer player, it is completely fine to take the first one most of the time. So right here, this scavenger could have been here to zone off the dread charger. It gets one hit off, not the biggest deal, but yeah, something you can prevent. Not very impactful. But here we can see a second power well, which is kind of fine, because there hasn't been like any action or something, but we see the tier 2 response. And this is something I would really like to I would like to explain, because right here we are 1 minute and 15 seconds into the game, and I would argue when playing against Shadow, for example, same thing applies when playing against Fire. An early tier 2 is not the best choice, because if the enemy has a tier 1 that can defend quite well against tier 2, you usually need a lot of extra power to be successful when attacking your opponent. So the game theory behind this is essentially that we have an extra well against the orb, and in order to make sure that this orb was worth it, Metagross now needs to destroy at least one power well, because if he just keeps taking power wells and at the same pace, JNP Outlaw will have more resources available to take them earlier, and therefore generate an advantage on the long term. Because 150 power now is gone. Like, this is bound into the monument. And if you do this too early, you usually do not have as much power in the backup to make sure that you destroy one of the enemy's power wells. Because this is the only way you can equalize right here. You need to destroy a power well. And ideally, you want to destroy this power well before this extra well generated 100 power. Because once it did pay off for itself, even if this one drops, you won't be ahead in total resource. So what happens here? 1 minute and 37 seconds, we see the tier 2 and the Vile Blood being played immediately. But you can see there's a lot of power available to defend. I think playing a preemptive Night Guard here would have been a viable choice, but we see Nox Troopers here. And yeah, there's just one lava field, and the scavenger is probably trying to finish off all those Nox Troopers. Yeah, it's quite good to get 2 of them down. Actually, this one will probably die as well. And what you can see right here is, in the end, or let's just there's no power available for a Surge of Light or something, and this power well, it goes down to 800. If you do the same thing like 2 or 3 minutes later, like both players take 4 wells, they wait a little bit, and then you take tier 2 as a response to the 5th or 6th well, this could work. Like, it's the same strategy, it's the same attack, but at some point, if there's enough power available, this could work. Because then you have the heal available, then you maybe can play a second lava field, and then those Shadow tier 1 units are less and less efficient. And the real payoff happens when you get this 1-0. Repairing a power well will just give you 100% void return. If it's destroyed, it gives 0%. And this really makes the difference. And I think it is very important to understand that it's very important to play a certain time in tier 1, especially when facing Shadow or Fire, because those factions are especially good at playing the tier 1 versus tier 2 when the enemy goes tier 2 too early. And yeah, they can just take an extra well and defend and deflect. So right now we can see all those Nox troopers are on the right side here, trying to ward something off, and tier 2 is being played. And I think Metagross right here does a very nice decision, because these ones are a little bit off of the board, because JNP Outlaw expected an attack on the right side, but right now we can see the Borrower on the left to destroy this monument. Also playing the Scorched Earth here, which is pretty nice. On Urmia, very strong card, and all these units here now have to walk around the corner, which takes way too long. So this orb really is in trouble. I think it is completely fine to cancel it and get the 75 refund. You would lose 25, but at this rate, it would have been way too risky to keep this up. Usually would cancel, clear out the units, and then rebuild the orb again. But like this, it ended up dropping, and technically speaking, Metagross would be back in the game by this. This game state is really playable. You just kicked an orb. This one didn't pay off yet, so it's kind of alright. The game would have been even, but that is like something that also plays into JNP Outlaw's hands, because the lava field right here, even though it looked quite nice, it did like more than 2000 damage probably, but it was completely wasted, because all of those units ended up being alive, and now he can send them to his power well and heal them up for free. Of course, bound power into tier 1 units is not as good, and ideally you want to cycle those ones out as early as possible. But at the current state, it is still fine to keep all those ranged units. Use the Frostbite support, for example, to keep them up, because Fire Nature has many M units, and those units can perform quite well, even though they are a little bit less efficient. And there was just 120 power gone for nothing. You can see all of those units ended up being alive. So if you want to use your spells, make sure that you have the tools to finish off the remaining units. Like even one hurricane would have been enough to kill everything, and like same thing, you need to finish off those units. And yeah, the Skyfire dies, Lava Field invested, Curse of Oink invested, Eruption invested. Like it's really efficient for the Shadow Frost player here, and therefore he makes a successful defense. And yeah, that is a very, very nice way to capitalize. Also, just to show this, what JNP Outlaw did, instead of, like, after deflecting this attack, he was in a very defensive situation. He had to heal up with all his units. So what he just did is taking an extra power well over his opponent, who just spent all his power. And therefore he could stay around the area, wait for his opponent to come. His units were alive at this point. He just didn't have to attack to generate a power lead. He just took an extra power well and defended successfully. And now he's in a very good position in this game. He's far ahead, and it is pretty difficult for Metagross to get back into leading position without winning a very big trade now. So yeah, those Stormstringers chasing down the Borrower. You could probably micro this one a little bit to make sure it's it ends up staying alive. And you can see the problem, like Eruption and Lava Fields, those units always end up staying alive at 10 health. It is so important to finish them off. It is so important to make sure your breakpoints are used to kill those units to have efficient trades in the end. Right here you can see, based on the tempo, there are 2 units, like JNP Outlaw has more units, has kind of equal tempo, and 2 extra power wells on the left, and therefore Metagross ended up realizing that this game is lost and ended up tapping out. I think it was a pretty interesting game to watch, and I think the overall decision making, when to use tier 2, when to pick up tier 2, how to position units, when to use spells, like all these things, like these small things, if you improve on that, there's so much room to have like an overall a more successful gameplay overall. And yeah, therefore I thought this game was really worth watching, and I really hope you enjoyed watching this video, and thanks for watching. See you in the next video.